Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Tuesday today. My name is Vanessa. I'm with ITS Communications, and today we have Ali from ITS Security with us, and she's going to be talking about LastPass, as well as really great tips on cybersecurity in general, how to create strong passwords, things like that. Before we begin, I just wanted to say that if you're new to Tech Tuesday, you've never attended one of our sessions, welcome. We're happy you're here, as well as to people who've been here before. We're always happy to have you. If you're new, please note that if you have any questions, please type them up in the chat. We do have a lot of people logged in, so we just want to make sure that everybody's on mute and that there's no background noise to distract from Ali's presentation. We also are recording today's session, so if you ever want to go back to refer to something that we talk about during the session today, I'll be sending a follow-up email at the end of today with a link to the recording, as well as some follow-up links to how you can set up your LastPass account, like general cybersecurity tips, things like that, so that you can be fully prepared to protect your data. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Ali. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Vanessa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. All right. So let me share this presentation. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ali Smith, and I am the Security and Identity Services Manager here at Wall Cornell. Can everyone see my screen before I keep going?
It looks great.
Perfect. So I'm the Security and Identity Services Manager here at Wall Cornell. So most of my job revolves around talking to users and other groups within ITS and the business to go over feedback or any ideas that people have about things that we can incorporate into our processes and also our applications. So I'm a little bit like the bridge between the users in the business and the security and identity technical and processes. So I help with overseeing a lot of our initiatives. And I also work with Vanessa and Bridget in the comms team a lot to come up with education and communication materials around security and identity access management. So as Vanessa said, today we will be talking about LastPass, which is the password manager that we have here at Wall Cornell that we recommend for our users. And I'll also be giving you guys some tips and statistics around strong passwords. So I think a lot of us have experience with passwords, and I'm sure a lot of you even used some earlier today to log in before you joined this session. So passwords have been around for a while, but when it comes to password maintenance, Americans are still struggling. So Google did a survey of 3,419 US adults to see their feelings and thoughts around passwords. And 75% of people said that they're still frustrated trying to keep track of so many different passwords and remembering them and typing them in every day. So even though passwords have been around for a while, people are still really frustrated about having complex and secure passwords. So make it easier on themselves. Some people have been choosing basic passwords or using personal information that is easy to guess as inspiration. So Google found that about a quarter of Americans have used the following common passwords or some variation, such as ABC123, password 123456, and common dictionary words and numerical sequences like that. Although that's easier to remember, it's a lot easier for a hacker to guess those passwords as well. So if you have any variation of any of these on the screen or something similar in your passwords, it's a good idea to update it. So another thing that people use to better remember their passwords and they think might be a little bit more secure is using some personal information about themselves in their passwords. So a name or a birthday, and a lot of people have used a pet's name, their own name, a spouse or partner's name, or their child and children's names. Although this seems unique to you and a little bit more secure, it's actually not. Nowadays, with the age of the internet and everything we have on social media, or just in general on LinkedIn and everything that people can Google about you, a lot of these things are a lot more accessible than you think. For example, if you have a great Instagram account for your adorable cat and your cat's name is on there, and it's also your Instagram password, it's really easy for hackers to guess that and use that to try to break into your accounts and use that in your password. So in addition to your personal information and names, a lot of these can be used in what's called dictionary attacks. So brute force attacks are something that hackers use to just try out multiple combinations to guess your password, and they just try out every combination they can. So it takes a very long time, but sometimes they can crack your password. Where dictionary attacks are a lot more targeted. They choose common phrases or words that may be in your password. So they're a lot less likely to guess your password if you're not using a common word in it, but it takes a lot shorter amount of time since they're a lot more specific and targeted. So in dictionary attacks, a lot of common things that would be included would be password or any other common names or phrases or words that could be commonly used in passwords. So Cyber News Investigation also did an analysis on password, and they found that 15.2 out of 15.2 billion passwords, less than 15% were unique. So even if you use your name or a date that's important to you, it may not be as unique as you think. And that's important because Comparitech also did an analysis on passwords and breaches, and they found that 80% of hacking related breaches are linked to passwords. So it's incredibly important to make sure your password is as unique and complex as you can make it. And it's not only hackers that may be trying to guess your password. Out of the adults that Google surveyed, 27% of people admitted to trying to guess someone else's password. And of those 27%, 17% got it correct. So you may have family and friends who are trying to guess your password. And although they don't have malicious intent, if they can guess your password, someone who has more malicious intent may be able to guess your password and use it to get into your accounts. So some more statistics around passwords. So sharing is caring, but not when it comes to your account security. So in Google survey, they found that 43% of people have shared their password in the past with someone, including Netflix or TV and movie streaming services, their email accounts, social media accounts, and their online shopping accounts. Although sharing passwords may seem like a good way for multiple people to save money and use the same Netflix or Hulu account, or to share your Amazon Prime account with others so you guys can all share one, it's not a good idea to share your passwords just by telling them to people, sending them over email, writing them down. The less people who know your password, the better. It really should only be you that knows the password to your accounts. And a really scary statistic around password sharing, 57% of people said they shared their password with a significant other, but only 11% changed that password after a breakup. So if any of you have any exes out there that you shared a password with, or any people, ex-best friends you used to be close to you had passwords with, I would suggest changing your passwords immediately, just because you never know what someone's intentions could be after you're no longer close with them. So despite all of these statistics around common passwords and how unique and how your password may not be as unique as you think it is, a lot of Americans' attitude toward additional practices to securing their passwords is thanks, but no thanks. So only 37% of people use two-factor authentication. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with two-factor authentication, though, given that we use Duo here at Wall Cornell to secure access to most of our applications. So for those of you, though, who aren't as familiar with Duo or don't really know what it is, Duo is two-factor authentication, which is a type of multi-factor authentication. So this is when you use two or more factors to verify your identity. These factors could include something you know, such as a password, passphrase, or PIN, something you have, such as a token, a smart card, your device, or even something you are, such as biometrics. So a fingerprint, your Face ID, or something along those lines. So Duo has two-factor authentication where we have your password as one means of verifying your identity. And then another means is getting a passcode from Duo or a push from Duo that you need to accept. So although this is a really easy way to better secure your accounts, not a lot of people are using it. In addition to that, only 34% of people admitted to changing their passwords regularly. So I know here at Wall Cornell, we improved our password policy, so you don't need to change your password as frequently because we require it to be a lot more secure. However, you still should refresh your passwords regularly on other sites just to keep up with the latest password guidance, or to keep your passwords fresh, or if you've shared them with people, or if bigger companies or any companies you use get hacked. For example, I don't know if many of you use Uber, but they were hacked a few weeks ago and the bad actor did get access to passwords. So it is a good idea to update your password after one of the accounts that you use for a website if that organization gets hacked. So in addition to changing your passwords regularly, using a password manager can really help improve the security around your accounts. And only 15% of people admitted to using one. So a password manager stores your login information for all of the websites that you use and helps you log into them automatically. So they encrypt your password database and you only need to use one master password in order to get in. So this master password is the only one that you have to remember. We'll talk a little bit about password managers later in the presentation, but it is a very good idea to use them to secure your accounts both for work and outside of work. So given that passwords need to be more secure and complex in order to be protected, it's a lot more difficult to remember them. So 36% of people said they keep track of their passwords by writing them on a piece of paper. Although this seems like a good way to remember your passwords, it's not very secure. If you do this at work, you never know who could be walking by your desk, if this could accidentally fall off your desk and get into the wrong hands or get thrown out. So even not from a security perspective, but if you're relying on that piece of paper to tell you your password and you lose it, then now you don't have your password anymore and you do need to end up resetting it. And if you have this at home and you live with roommates or family members, you never know how many people are coming in and out of your home who could be seeing this password on the piece of paper, or again, the risk of this falling and getting picked up by someone or swept into the trash. So another method that people use that aren't secure to remember their passwords is using the same password for more than one online account. So Google found that more than half of people reuse their passwords for more than one online account, which is not great because if you get hacked on one account, say your Amazon account, the hacker has access to your credit card, your addresses, any other information you have in Amazon. But if you also use this password on your Wall Cornell Connect account to communicate with your doctors and see your patient health data, then the hacker can get access to that account too. And hackers will try the same password on one account for other accounts they can figure out that you own via it be the same username or same email address used. Especially if you use the same password on your email address as other accounts, then the hackers can look in your email address, see what account you're using based on the emails and newsletters you get from organizations, and then reuse that password to get into other accounts. So Comparitech actually took this a little bit further to look into password reuse, and they did find that 35% of people said they use different passwords for every single one of their accounts. So that is great news because that's the gold standard. So what those users are doing is great. However, that number is low. We'd rather that more than 35% of people be doing that. And the one scary thing they found is 13% of people are reusing the same exact password for every single account. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you get hacked on one account and use the same password on another, the hacker can reuse that password. So if you're using the same exact password for every account, a hacker gets into one of your accounts, they could get into all of them. And they could get things like your social security number, credit card information, addresses, personal information. If they get onto your social media, they can make posts tricking and phishing your other colleagues and friends. So it's really dangerous to use the same exact password for all or even more than one of your accounts. So despite all of this, many Americans are sacrificing security for convenience. And 4 in 10 people that Google surveyed said their account information has been compromised online. And 47% of those who were compromised lost money due to the compromise, including 12% who lost more than $500. That's a lot of money to lose when it's free to use two-factor authentication, change your password regularly, use a password manager, and use unique and complex passwords. In addition to losing money, people reported losing time due to data breach. I don't know if any of you have been breached, but it does take time to contact customer service, get your password reset, see what information the hacker stole from you, and see what information you need to update or now reach out to other parties to update. So it does take a lot of time to recover your information after being breached. Despite this loss of time and money, less than half of Americans that Google surveyed said they would change their passwords due to an online account following a data breach. This is really dangerous because if you don't change your passwords after a breach, the hackers may try the password again and try to bypass any of the other security measures you have in place if you don't have things like two-factor authentication on there. Or if you use the same password for another account that was hacked, they may try to use that hacked password on other accounts. So as I mentioned, a lot of people think that using their name or birth dates or things that seem somewhat unique to them is a good idea in their passwords. However, Cyber News Investigation surveyed 15.2 billion passwords to determine what phrases and names and dates were commonly used in passwords. So as you can see here, over 7 million passwords contained the name Ava or Alex. Ava could also be a colloquial way of saying ever, but still it's very commonly used in passwords. And if you use, if your name is one on here and you use that in your password, you might want to change it immediately given the commonality of a lot of these first names in passwords. So another thing that people use that they may think is unique to them is their favorite sports team. So as you can see here, a lot of Suns and Heat fans use their favorite sports team in their password. However, this isn't a great idea given that it's susceptible to dictionary attacks And again, if you're posting anything on social media about your favorite sports team, following any sports accounts on social media, hackers can use that information to try to guess your password. So not only using your favorite sports teams, but using your favorite city or the city in which you live in your password can also make you susceptible to being hacked. As you can see here, a lot of famous and major cities are used in people's passwords. And if you have any information about where you live or work on social media or just in general on the internet, hackers can search that and see if that might be used in your password. You may see even here in the number 10 spot, we have the word York. In New York, which a lot of us work here at Wall Cornell, and I'm sure a lot of people live as well because we work here at Wall Cornell. So if you're using this in your password, it's a really good idea to update that right away. So something that may be a little bit less, something you may think is a little bit less easy to guess used in your password, favorite food. So Cyber News investigation found that the number one food related word was pan, and the number 2 was ice, as in ice cream or iced tea. So you may not be posting about your favorite food online a lot, or that may not be readily accessible information. But again, this is really susceptible to dictionary attacks. And also too, if it's something a lot of people are using in their passwords, it's something a lot of hackers are going to be using to guess your passwords. So if you're using the word ice, tea, pie, nut, or fish in your passwords, it's a really good idea to change it right now. In addition to using your favorite foods in your passwords, I mentioned that people like to use their favorite dates, whether it be a birthday or an anniversary in their passwords as well. However, as you can see here, a lot of people use seasons, weekdays, and months in their passwords. So this makes it a lot easier to guess. Over 1 million passwords contain the word summer in it. And then around 150,000 contain Friday and 150,000 contain May. So even if your birthday or your favorite season or your favorite month or your anniversary may be something that's special and unique to you, it may not be as special or unique as you think if you put it in your password, given that so many other people use it in their passwords and that these can all be susceptible to dictionary attacks. So aside from common words that are found in passwords that you should avoid, Cyber News investigation also looked into length of passwords. So they found that the most common password length was 8 characters followed by 6 characters. Although 8 characters is a bit more secure than 6 characters, we really want the more characters, the better in passwords, because this opens it up to more combinations. And the more combinations for your password, the less likely it is that hackers will be able to guess it. So aside from these investigations done by other companies, what else do we know about password trends here at Wall Cornell? So complicated password policies force the following habits. So if you use different variables in your passwords, it makes it a lot more difficult to guess your passwords because you get a lot of different combinations. If you only use lowercase letters in an 8-character password, then you only get 26 to the 8th degree different combinations in your passwords. However, you change it up by throwing in some capital letters, some numbers, or some symbols, then you can make your passwords more complicated and more difficult to guess. Some websites do not let you use the full majority of symbols, but most websites let you use at least a handful of them. So adding in symbols is another great way to get some variety in your passwords and make them more difficult to guess. So a 12-character password takes 62 trillion times longer to crack than a 6-character password. If you create a password with 6 numbers, there are a million possibilities. However, if you change that to lowercase letters, that number jumps to 300 million, given there are more letters in the alphabet than numbers. And if you use a combination of upper and lowercase letters, you get 2 billion different combinations in a 6-character password. Adding in special characters and the number of possibilities in the hundreds of billions. So using a lot of different variables in your passwords makes the amount of combinations greater and the chance of them being compromised lesser. So if you only use letters and numbers in an 8-character password, you can have as many as 200 trillion possibilities. Up that to a 12-character password, and the number is so big that it's over the 10 to the 23rd degree. So as you increase the length and complexity of your passwords, it gets a lot more difficult for them to be guessed. So to put it in perspective, if a given computer could crack a 6-character password in 1 second, it would take more than 2 million years to crack a 12-character password. So here at Wall Cornell, we do require most of you to have at least 16 characters in your password, therefore making them a lot more secure and more difficult to guess. We also require that you don't use anything based on what somebody else could easily guess or obtain for you. So we don't let you use your seaweed, your telephone number, your name, or dates of birth, which, as I mentioned earlier, are a lot less secure if you use them in your personal accounts. We also require you to make passwords that aren't vulnerable to a dictionary attack. So we put some things into place to prevent your passwords from being compromised, but it's good to carry over these trends and ideas into your personal accounts. So before we put this updated password policy into place about 1.5 years ago, one of my colleagues, Brian Fisher, actually attempted to crack the passwords of people here at Weill Cornell. So he used a controlled environment and a 7-year-old computer, and over a 24-hour span, he attempted to crack the passwords here of people at Weill Cornell. So as you can see in this graph to the left, he was able to crack 41% of user password. That means that a good amount of you on this call had your passwords cracked before we updated our password policies. So that's a scary thought, that using a 7-year-old computer only for 24 hours, he was able to crack so many different passwords. This graph here shows the length of passwords that were cracked by Brian. So as you can see, most of the passwords cracked were in the 8 to 10 range, but the likelihood that he cracked a password went down as the amount of characters went up. So this just goes to show that, again, having a longer password does make it more secure and less likely that it'll be cracked. So we've talked a lot about insecure passwords, but in summary, how do we make passwords stronger? We use longer and memorable passphrases. So as you can see here, a lot of these passphrases don't make a lot of sense, but that's good because they can't be easily guessed by someone. For example, having a longer password or a longer passphrase makes things more difficult to guess, but not if you use common lyrics, quotes, or dictionary words. So if you use a passphrase containing "it's the eye of the tiger" or "I have a dream," that's not very secure, just given that that's very popular in pop culture and could be easily guessed by a hacker. So we also use password managers and two-factor authentication to better secure our accounts. These are both very easy steps to add an extra layer of security to your accounts. We also update our personal email address to reset a forgotten password here at Weill Cornell. So we don't use security questions anymore after we've updated our password requirements at Weill Cornell. We use your personal email address if you've forgotten your password or we need to reset your password because of suspicious activity. So if you go to directory.weil, you can check to make sure that you have your personal email address in there so we can adequately contact you when you need to reset your password. You can put your email address in there under the visibility emergency. Therefore, no one can see your personal email address when they search for you in the directory, and we'll just use it to reach out to you in the event of emergency, such as trying to reset your password or suspicious activity. You may want to go in there and check that you have your personal email address in there after this meeting, especially if you're not sure if you have it in there, or if you know you haven't updated your directory information since you started, because you may have switched personal email addresses since then. So it's good to make sure that you have the most current personal email address for you in there. And this also goes for some of your other accounts outside of Weill Cornell. A lot of other accounts offer a recovery phone number or recovery email address for your account. So it's good to make sure to check that you have the most updated information in there for that. So lastly, we use unique passwords for every website. As mentioned before, if you use the same password for multiple websites, it's a lot easier for hackers to get into more of your accounts when they hack one. It's also a good idea, if you don't want to use passphrases, to have passwords like the below down here with the XYJ and starting with R3R, using a variety of lowercase and uppercase letters, numbers, and symbols, and having a long length to make them a lot less easy to guess. So we've been talking a little bit about password managers. So what exactly is a password manager? So password manager is a computer program that allows users to store, generate, and manage their passwords for local applications and online services. A password manager assists in generating and retrieving complex passwords and storing those passwords in an encrypted database or calculating them on demand. So types of password managers include locally installed software applications, online services accessed through web portals, and locally accessed hardware devices that serve as keys. So in a little less technical terms, password managers store all of your passwords in a vault, and your master key or your master password is the key that would unlock that vault. So no one but you is able to access that vault because you are the only one that has your master password. So you would create one super strong master password using a passphrase or a very secure password to unlock your vault. You could also use a password manager to generate unique passwords for you for all of your websites, and use a password manager to log into your apps to autofill the passwords for you. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, here at Wall Cornell, we recommend using LastPass, and we offer this to all of you to use this to better secure both your Seaweed and your personal accounts. So LastPass sounds pretty great. How does it work? So after you download the browser extension for LastPass, when you log into different sites, you'll see this little icon here. If you can't see it on the screen because it's too small, it's a light gray square with 3 white circles in the middle. And there's also a little lock button with a gray arrow around it. So if you click this icon in the form field, you can select the account you wish to log into. As you can see here, you can also store multiple accounts for the same website. So if you use different Google accounts for different purposes, or say you have different Instagram accounts that you use, you can store all of them in LastPass and use all of them when you need to. So you select whichever account you want to use, and you watch LastPass autofill your credentials. So on your computer, this is limited to just web browsers. So you can't use this to log into Epic or your own computer. So you do need to remember your Seaweed password for both of those purposes. However, by putting your Seaweed into LastPass, you can use it throughout the day to log into all of your various apps instead of having to type your password over and over again. So if you're logging into Wall Business Gateway or Panopto or ServiceNow, you can use LastPass to log into applications like that. It also works on your phone, so this works with websites and apps if you need to log in on your phone as well. So I mentioned that you can use LastPass to generate passwords for you. So once you click in whichever account you want to make, or if you're logging into a new account, you can click this little icon right here with the lock and the gray arrow, and you can generate a password. So you can choose from a bunch of different options to generate your password. You can choose whatever length you want the password to be, and you can choose up to 99 characters for your password. So some websites will not support this, but for those that do, you can make your password ultra secure by increasing the length of your password. You can also choose what variables you want to put in your password. So uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, or if you want to include all characters. You can even choose whether you want your password to be easy to say or easy to read. So if you click that you want your password to be easy to say, it will only have upper and lowercase letters in there, so you can help remember your password by saying it and making it easy to say. LastPass doesn't generate passphrases quite yet. They do recommend to make your master password a passphrase, so we're hoping this is a feature coming soon, but you can store your own secure passphrases within LastPass. So LastPass sounds pretty great already, but it does even more than just generating passwords and storing your passwords for you. So as I mentioned earlier, it is not very secure to share your passwords with your family members or colleagues, but if you need to, LastPass is a secure way to do so. So you can share an item, a username, a password, a secure note with another user by using the sharing center. So you can notify your recipient that this has been shared with them, and they can access that whichever account you want them to have access to. However, if you change your mind, you can always revoke access, and you can update the password after you've revoked access to keep that account secure. You can also measure the strength of your passwords. So if you have all your own passwords in there and you don't want LastPass generating any for you, you can see how they measure up security-wise against the password requirements. You can also automatically change passwords on many websites. So if you do get compromised on one website and just want to change all of your other passwords, you can do so easily through LastPass. It also autofills form fields and credit card information, so you can securely store that so you don't have to continuously type in your credit card number every time you're buying something on Etsy, Amazon, or any other shopping site. Here at Wall Cornell, we do generate your Seaweed for you, but on your personal account, you can generate usernames for you with LastPass, as you can do for passwords. Lastly, LastPass offers dark web monitoring. So you can use dark web monitoring to see if your email account has appeared anywhere on the dark web for credential compromise or being sold to hackers, and you can see if your email account is on there. In order to do this, you can go into LastPass, go to your security dashboard, and if you go down the bottom of the page, it's the first option when you log in. So you can enable which email addresses you have stored that you want monitored. And if for some reason you want to turn monitoring off, you can at any time through the same security dashboard. So although we recommend you secure all of your accounts, LastPass recommends the priority be your banking, your email, and your social media accounts. So if you don't have any of those in there today, and if you don't have LastPass, it's a good idea to put those in there. Also here at Wall Cornell, we strongly recommend you secure your Seaweed and work account through LastPass, so you can have an extra layer of security. So again, LastPass sounds pretty great, but is it safe and secure? It is, because passwords are encrypted at rest. So LastPass operates on a zero-knowledge security model where all encryption and decryption occurs locally on your device, not on LastPass's servers. So this means your sensitive vault is only transferred over the internet, is only transferred to LastPass once it has been encrypted, and it never travels over the internet unencrypted. So your passwords are never transferred or visible to anyone aside from you. You maintain the decryption key, so you are the only one who has access and knows what these passwords are. You also must add two-factor authentication for extra security. So you cannot just simply log into LastPass with your password. You need to also have two-factor authentication enabled. So if you're using Weill Cornell's LastPass, you must have Duo enabled in order to log in. As mentioned, you are the only one who can see your passwords. So LastPass and Weill Cornell cannot see your passwords. This means that you are the only person who sees them and the only person who knows them. And you may be thinking that LastPass sounds like a great idea, but you're not sure if you want to share your passwords with Weill Cornell's LastPass if you don't see yourself in a career here long term, but you retain access to your account data after you leave Weill Cornell. So if you sign up to LastPass through Weill Cornell and you leave, you take all of that with you and you won't lose that data and we won't see it. So all in all, your master password and the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data. They're never sent to LastPass's servers and never accessible by LastPass. So if you're thinking LastPass sounds like a great idea for you, how do you sign up? So you go to lastpass.weill.cornell.edu, and you must already be enrolled in Duo before you try to sign up. So make sure you are. You can also create a free personal account before you create your Weill Cornell account on LastPass, and then you can later merge them whenever you choose to. So as Vanessa mentioned earlier, she'll be sending out the setup guide we have for LastPass and also how you can link to a personal account within LastPass. So that is the end of what I have to present on LastPass. So does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns, or anything they want to go over?
Yeah, and just to remind everyone I know a few people came in a little after Ali started speaking. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and we'll get to all of them. If you've got any questions about LastPass or cybersecurity, now is the time to ask. I will remind people that October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we are going to be sending a lot of tips out this month, LastPass included. Oh, we're getting a ton of questions. And hold on, let me stop right there. Any tips for how to store the master password or key for LastPass?
That's a really good question. You could always store it within a different password generator, but then you do need to remember your master password for that generator as well. So I would suggest using another password vault to store it if you need to. You can also use a passphrase that's easy for you to remember but complicated. But if you do need to store it, I would recommend another password generator outside of LastPass, or even another account within LastPass.
Perfect. So just some clarification, does LastPass automatically generate passwords?
It can if you choose to. So there's a feature that you can use here. If I go back a little bit, you can use, when you're signing up for a website, you can click on this button here if you're logged into LastPass to generate a password for you, and you can specify how complicated you want the password to be. So you can either choose your own password, or when you sign up for a new account, you can have LastPass generate the password for you. Or if you already have accounts, but you want LastPass to create a new password for you, you can just reset your password on the site. Say you have a Google account you want to reset the password for. You go to Google, you reset your account, and then you click on this icon here to have LastPass generate a new password for you.
Awesome. Next question. Oh, John, can we watch this video later? Yes. So for anybody who was also a little late to the session, I am recording this session and I will send you a link to the video recording that you can refer back to later today. So you will be getting a copy of this as well as all of the links Ali just mentioned on how to set up your account and some other tips about how to use LastPass. Oh, I like this question, even though it's a tad morbid. What happens to your account when you die?
That is a really good question. I do not know the answer to that. I will look into it because LastPass doesn't ask you to name a beneficiary, But that is a really good question. I actually will reach out to LastPass to support to see what they do in that case.
That's a very good question, actually.
It is.
And then, oh, can you send us a transcript? Louise, if you're referring to a transcript of today's session, I certainly can. It'll be a transcript of things like the questions, but the video will also be, it's usually closed captioned if that's what you want to look at as well. Can you go over the part where you said, if you leave Weill Cornell, what happens to your LastPass?
So if you leave Weill Cornell, what happens to your LastPass? I'm not sure of the actual process, but you do hang on to your passwords and all of your accounts in there. As I mentioned before, LastPass and Weill Cornell does not see your passwords. So we don't own the information that you put in there. The one thing would be your Weill Cornell seaweed. You can't really take with you because that would get deactivated. However, your other accounts you would be able to take with you. I'll look up on LastPass's customer site. The support article that they have outlining what the actual process is, but you can take your LastPass information with you.
Hey, Ali, I want to offer one comment on that. Just so, because I think we've received this a question a lot, so it's a great one to add to an FAQ. The Weill Cornell benefit for LastPass is to essentially enable a free personal account with premium benefits at no extra cost to you. So Weill Cornell has an enterprise contract with LastPass, which is akin to what you would get if you paid LastPass for a higher tiered account, which allows syncing across devices and things like that. And then in addition, if you have passwords that are specific for accessing Weill Cornell services, you can store them in that LastPass account when you link it. So when you leave Weill Cornell, the Weill Cornell managed accounts, things that you use specifically to log into Weill Cornell systems, those would be purged, but your personal accounts would remain, and then the account would revert to a free account without the premium features. And excuse me, if you wanted to continue with the premium features, you would then have to pay LastPass and manage that account separately. So it's really more a linking of the benefits that you get by associating it with Weill Cornell.
Thanks, Brian. That was our Chief Information Security Officer, by the way, Brian Schinkel. Thank you for clarifying that. And so as this is a good follow-up question. Somebody asked, so if you want, I guess, to have passwords for laptop and mobile or connect laptop and mobile accounts, you have to upgrade to premium, is the question.
I don't.
So yeah, in light of what I just said, right? If you are linked, if you have a personal account that you choose to link to a Cornell account, or if you decide to use a Cornell account only, the premium features will apply to those accounts once it's linked to our enterprise, right? We provide a premium license while you are active at Weill Cornell, and that would allow you to install LastPass on multiple devices, sync passwords between an iPad, a laptop, web browser, all that stuff that they describe on their website.
Got it. What about Ali, the various requirements for different sites in terms of like what they allow for a password, like like punctuation, numbers, things like that? Does LastPass manage that for you?
So I don't believe so. Most websites will tell you kind of at the top when you're doing your password input, what passwords they'll allow, and then they won't allow you to create one if it doesn't meet the requirements. So you can always adjust them on LastPass. But I don't know, Brian, if LastPass, I don't think it manages the actual requirements for each website.
It depends on how the website's created. I think sometimes it's able to pick up on the requirements. Some websites are a bit better. They're a little more dynamic. When you start typing the password in, you might see those little check boxes that will indicate that you've satisfied the requirements. Some they don't tell you until after you hit submit. So LastPass may or may not be able to pick that up as you go. But you can tune the settings in LastPass for every site that you choose to generate a password for. So if you find that one website has a cap of only 16 characters, you can tell LastPass to only generate a 16-character password, for instance.
Got it. Is LastPass more secure than, say, Google's integrated password or info manager?
I would say yes. I don't know what your thought is on that, Brian.
This is a hard one to answer. So all of the underlying encryption that's being used, the method's essentially the same. So if you choose to use something other than LastPass, an Apple keychain, if you're a heavy Mac user, or 1Password, or some of these other competitors that exist to LastPass, they are all providing security much in the same principles, and they're all convenient for people to use. The biggest thing is having a secure password for that master password, right? Google may be as secure as your LastPass vault in terms of how they store your passwords. But if you have a really weak password to get into your Google account, it's not as secure anymore because it's vulnerable to cracking. So the important thing is to set a really strong master password that you remember, that's not easily cracked, following the principles Ali described, and of course, enabling two-factor authentication on your account.
Got it. So we have a question here. I signed up for LastPass when you first rolled this out years ago. However, I can't remember my username or password. Do you have a KPI on how to regain access?
I believe we do have a KB on how to regain access. I could send that to you because I had an issue with this as well at one point. So let me look for the KB on that, because I do remember also having an issue with forgetting my password.
Got it. And if you find that link, Ali, I can send it to everyone just in case in the follow-up email. Can you merge your data, for example, passwords from another password manager program into LastPass? It sounded like perhaps, maybe, Ali, if you could clarify.
That's a really good question. I'm actually not sure if you can merge from another site with your LastPass passwords. I mean, what you can do is once you type in your password for the first time, you can restore it in LastPass. But I don't know, Brian, if you're aware of an easy way to merge passwords from one password manager into LastPass, or import, I guess.
They do have an import function. I actually went on a soul searching mission and tried to decide which password manager I wanted to use, because I was using LastPass and then trialed like 3 or 4 other ones. It ultimately ended up coming back to LastPass. But yes, a lot of these products do, and I think this is probably because it's such a competitive marketplace. They do have import functions. You might have to work with it a little bit because the fields that a different password manager uses might not map exactly to the way LastPass works. But LastPass is trying to recruit customers from their competitors, so they have typically figured that out already, and will help you map it accordingly. If you're using Dashlane or 1Password, they've usually got a template for that. So yes, they've got some import functions.
So there's a question here from Lois. What are the premium features? What I can do is just get a link from LastPass of what the different tiers are of the free account versus the premium, so you guys can see what you'd be getting with the Weill Cornell Enterprise account that we have. And then there's one last question here. If you use LastPass to auto-generate passwords for each site, is it easy to then copy and paste each new password to then enter it as a new password on each site?
So if you use LastPass to auto-generate your passwords, they'll store the password. So when you need to log into one of your accounts, they will auto-fill the password for you. So actually here, I can show you guys what LastPass does. Let me show you how you log in. Just because if you use LastPass to auto-generate a password, you don't need to copy and paste it. LastPass does it for you. You can copy and paste it if you want. So I can even log into LastPass to show you guys what this looks like. Let's do a tutorial here. Let me share this screen. All right. So if I go to LastPass and I log in, so I've logged into LastPass before today, so I already have LastPass fill in credentials for me. So it will ask me which account I want to use. I'll click that one. It fills in my password. I log in. Oh, this is the wrong LastPass link. Sorry, guys. Let me go to lastpass.com. So if I log in with my email address and my master password, then it's going to ask me for a duo push. So let me accept that. Accepted. So when you go here into LastPass, these are where all of your apps are stored. So if you need to get one of your passwords, you can copy and paste them. However, it's a lot easier to just go to wherever you need to log in and log in that way. So oh, my credentials are saved there. So let me go to, I'm trying to think of something to log into. Security net. All right. So it's already, I think I'm logged into too many things, so it's just logging me in.
Might have to try a in private browser to avoid the session, but I think if you
Yeah.
show the slide with the that you have with the autofill, I think that's I think that might address the question. The benefit of this is that you can do the form fill features, right? So you can really create an identity profile in LastPass, and as you can see on the screen here, you know, this account has 4 Google accounts that are stored. And what Allie's showing on the screen is that you can just, when you put your mouse into the field to log in, you can, the drop down will automatically appear from the browser. And when you click this link, it will pre-fill your email address and password so that you don't even have to do a copy and paste. In most cases, I think it works pretty well. I mean, Allie, you might have your own experiences with it, but I do think you don't have to copy and paste manually that often. It should detect the fields on there. And if you are, if you do some online shopping and want to use credit cards and billing addresses, you can create that whole profile in LastPass as well. And when you go to check out on a website, it can pre-fill name, email address, all that stuff. Very similar to how some native features work in the web browser that you might see when you start typing. It pre-fills a dropdown, but this will store it in a secure vault inside of LastPass too.
Thanks, guys. And that's about, I know that we're at time, we're a little tiny bit over. There is a question at the end about linking the accounts, but I'll be sending out the instructions on how to do that in the follow-up email, just so if you want to have a personal account and link it to your Weill Cornell account, you can do that. I'm going to wrap up the session. If you do have more questions, though, if you start using LastPass or have some issues perhaps with sign up or questions about it, please feel free to write back in the email, I'll make sure it gets to Allie and our security team, and they can help you out with using LastPass or any other cybersecurity questions that you might have. So I want to thank Allie. I want to thank Brian as well, since he chimed in during our Q&A part, for telling us more about LastPass today, and thank everyone else for attending today's session. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.